Right on time for tonight's news broadcast. We have plenty of stories we've lined up for you, but first things first, let's look at the highlights. Tonight, former Nairobi governor remains in lockup.
All offences under the Constitution now are bailable.
Court to rule on bail application Tuesday afternoon.
I wish to apply my own standards for obvious reasons of consistency and to discourage and to encourage counsel to employ time management.
And hard times ahead for patients in Nairobi, Narok and Murang'a. KEMSA blacklists counties for non-payment.
Plus, E-Class Mercedes-Benzes, Chevrolet Trailblazers, Ford Rangers, judiciary's list of needs as they seek approval from Parliament for 2.1 billion shillings.
Also tonight, parents burying their children in Matungu.
Shule ya Itete wameua msichana mmoja wakatupa karibu na geti ya shule.
Mwezi iliyopita tena walikata kijana mwingine hapo chini.
6 cases of violent murders reported in the last 3 weeks.
NTV Tonight with Dennis Okari and Smriti Vidyarthi.
Hi there, thanks for joining us. I'm standing in for Olive Burrows tonight, who will be on Press Pass later on, standing in for Mark Masai. And our sign language interpreter tonight is David Agondoa.
Well, let's go straight to our stories tonight. It will be another long night for former Nairobi Governor Evans Kidero, who will spend another night in police custody until tomorrow afternoon when the court will rule on his bail application.
Well, Kidero, who is charged alongside 14 other people, denied various corruption-related offences, including the irregular payments of about 58 million shillings to a law firm back when he was governor.
NTV's Seth Olale followed the proceedings at the Milimani Law Court and has more on Kidero's latest tribulations. That story is coming up in a short while. This is a story that we've been following up since Friday when he was arrested, and many people anticipate to see what happens on Tuesday. The story, I think, is ready now.
After a weekend in custody, Evans Kidero was in court to face his accusers. He and 14 others are facing charges ranging from abuse of office, conspiracy to commit a corruption offense, handling suspect property, money laundering, and unlawful acquisition of public property, charges that he denies. The suspects are accused of unlawfully processing the payment of 58 million shillings to deceased lawyer Stephen Karoki Mburu, who was at the time trading as Washira Mburu Mwangi and advocates. The alleged offences were committed between January 2nd, 2014 and January 14th, same year. 13 accused persons, including sitting Nakach MP Joshua Aduma Owor, who was then acting Director of Legal Affairs at the defunct City Council, former Chief of Staff in Kidero's administration George Wanaina Njogu, former Nairobi Mayor John Ndirangu Kariuki, and former Councillor Paul Mutunga Mutungi, among others, were present in court at the time of plea taking, while 2 others were absent but their names were read out. Kidero and his co-accused had hoped for a reprieve, having spent the entire weekend in police cells.
It's not the toughness of your case.
He has accused authorities of persecuting him and prosecuting him in the court of public opinion.
They did say that because it can be equated to murder, that therefore the offense is not bailable. And here even murder here is bailable. All offenses under the Constitution now are bailable.
The Constitution gives this court the necessary power to exercise your discretion.
Chief Magistrate Douglas Ogoti, however, ordered the suspects to be detained for another night at the Kilimani police station until Tuesday afternoon, when he will rule on their bond applications.
I wish to apply my own standards for obvious reasons of consistency and to discourage and to encourage counsel to employ time management. This may not sound fair to accused. I will endeavor to deliver this ruling tomorrow about noon. because I have other matters in the morning, because I will sit on it overnight.
The former Nairobi governor is set to spend the fortnight in police custody after being arrested last week on Friday. Chief Magistrate Douglas Ogoti will make the bail application ruling on Tuesday noon after both parties made their submissions. Seth Olale, NTV, at the Milimani Law Courts, Nairobi County.
Staying with our story, and Dr. Evans Kidero's troubles didn't just start the other day. Goes back several years ago. In February 2016, the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission applied for warrants of arrest to investigate bank accounts, and this was his sterling pound account, a US dollar account, plus his Evans Kidero Foundation account, but the warrants to the probe allegedly on economic crimes were halted by a judge. July 2017, we also saw the CMA, that's the Capital Markets Authority, and the Director of Public Prosecutions investigating personal bank accounts. That's between the year 2002 and 2012. But the High Court stopped the CMA from probing his accounts. And in March 2018, the audit firm KPMG report pointed out that there was money that was unaccounted for, up to 21 billion Kenya shillings, by the time Kidero was leaving office. So they wanted that probed as well. In August 2018, the DPP linked Dr. Kidero and 7 others to embezzlement of public funds and mismanagement of the same funds. And the EACC came back again, and they wanted to arrest him over money laundering, bribery, conflict of interest, failure to protect public property. He was charged when he was charged in court with fraud and abuse of office. But going to September 2018, again, EACC detectives raided Dr. Kidero's Muthaiga home and offices. And part of the reasons why they were doing that in November, they were looking to investigate properties worth 9 billion Kenya shillings across the country. And they believed there were documents that were in his house, plus huge amounts of money. And looking at another month again, when they were still investigating several other issues, March 2019, he was arrested on Friday. This is the very latest, and held by EACC officials over corruption charges, and he pleaded not guilty to the charges. So we wait to see how this story unfolds. Moving on now, the acting managing director of the National Cereals and Produce Board, Albin Sang, has been kicked out of office by Agriculture Cabinet Secretary Mwangi Kiunjuri for allegedly selling 1 billion shillings worth of maize without the ministry's authorization. The maize in question is believed to have been part of the consignment imported from Mexico. Zainab Bondati reports.
The National Cereals and Produce Board is not new to controversy, and even before the storm over the payment of farmers passes, acting managing director Albin Sang has been caught up in a new whirlwind of controversy that has him hauled out the door. Sang is accused of selling off 600,000 bags of maize imported from Mexico without the approval of the Cabinet Secretary of Agriculture. The maize was valued at 1 billion shillings at the time of sale and was sold to millers as used for animal feed. And although the CS accuses Sang of overseeing the sale without approval, Sang says his action was based on a letter he received from the then Principal Secretary in the Ministry of Agriculture. He says he received no follow-up letter to stop the sale. Just last week, Sang said NCPB will proceed to pay 12 farmers, including Deputy President William Ruto, a total of 200 million shillings for maize deliveries in 2017. The 12 are among the 62 individuals who had been put under investigation by the EACC over suspected irregular supply of maize to the board in order to benefit from a government prize of 3,200 shillings. EACC has, however, cleared the payments. NCPB has been dogged with corruption cases and misuse of public resources, which saw the previous MD Newton Terrer resign from his position last year. A substantive MD, Joseph Kimote, was then appointed in December last year, but he's yet to assume office due to a pay dispute with the ministry. Kimote is currently general manager at the NSSF, earning 700,000 shillings a month, while the NCPB offered to pay him 500,000 shillings. Sang, who has been in acting capacity since May last year, has now been redeployed to the State Department of Livestock and replaced by Zakayo Magara at NCPB. Zainab Wandati, NTV.
Now, to a shocker of a story, the judiciary is asking Parliament to approve an additional 2.1 billion shillings to buy more than 200 high-end luxury cars for use within the departments. Now, the demands are contained in their budget estimates submitted to the National Assembly last week for approval. Ken Majungu reports that the judiciary has defended these proposals, saying that some of the judges have been sharing their official cars, which was a great inconvenience to them.
A year after the judiciary was hit by massive budget cuts that saw its budget for development reduced to only 50 million shillings, the third arm of the government is now causing a stir over a proposal in its budget estimates for 2019-2020 financial year. The judiciary wants an additional allocation of 5 billion shillings, but about half of it, some 2.1 billion shillings, will go towards the purchase of luxury motor vehicles. The balance will be spent on other priority areas such as car loans for the same judges and other judiciary staff, mortgages and pension.
The judiciary is proposing to buy first the Mercedes-Benz E-Class, which will cost about 11 million shillings per car, and they're seeking to buy 80 of them at a cost of 883 million shillings. Aside from the ones that are defined for the judges, existing judges and magistrates, they're saying that they have been hiring new judges, and for this they're asking for an additional 41 cars. Now the 41 will also be Mercedes-Benz high-end cars at a cost of 453 million shillings. However, the unit price for these additional cars is not given, but the total will be 453 million shillings. And they're also thinking of going out of the station. So they're thinking of 4x4 cars, and that's where the Chevy Trailblazers come in. They want 41 of these cars at a cost of 260 million shillings. And still for the outstation, they're thinking of the Ford Rangers. First, they want 50 that they have already defined where the 50 are going to be used. The Ford Rangers, 50 of them, will cost the judiciary 383 million shillings. Aside from that, they still need more of the Rangers. So they're asking for 20 more Ford Rangers at a cost of 153 million shillings. So you ask, how much will this cost? It will cost 2.1 billion shillings to buy all these cars for the judiciary.
But such sights of a car graveyard taking in the judiciary's expensive vintage perhaps provide an apt picture of the judiciary's and indeed the government's spending culture. Last year, the judiciary was forced to cancel a public auction of several high-end cars that had been lying in their yard for a long time. This was seen as a reaction to NTV's expose of the judiciary's expensive junkyard. The vehicles have since been auctioned. The judiciary says it has employed new judges who need to be accommodated within the budget, even as it struggles to get more money to complete pending projects and initiate new ones. Ken Mijungu, NTV.
I mean, Dennis, the demand or request for such high-end luxury cars, and so many of them, is beyond me. Surely any other car would get them to the judiciary and back.
I think right now anyone would want to be a judge. But there was also an issue of cutting cost, and it was not just the purchase of the cars, also looking at the fuel consumption because they're fuel guzzlers. So I don't know how they're going to handle this.
Definitely a story that we will be following.
Let's move on now. Nairobi Governor Mike Sonko is now questioning the quality of reports by the Auditor General, who questioned how a company affiliated with Meru Senator Mithika Linturi had been awarded the contract and paid 98 million shillings, yet it had not transacted any business with Nairobi County.
Appearing before the Senate's Public Accounts and Investments Committee, Sonko was also hard-pressed to explain his expenditure on the beautification project after documents he presented discredited his earlier claim that he had paid for it with his own money.
The Nairobi County government had a date with the Senate's Public Accounts and Investments Committee to answer to questions of the executive's expenditure for the year 2017-2018. And they came prepared with loads of documents, ready to defend themselves after the Auditor General gave the county a disclaimer for the fourth straight year. The county's governor, Mike Sonko, had also brought in his ministers, each to respond to queries that would touch on their line ministries. As the committee settled in to listen to their submissions on the Auditor General's report, he threw a spanner in the works, accusing the Office of the Auditor General of corruption.
Some of the queries are genuine queries, Mr. Chair, but some of the queries were put there to make us pay the corruption fee that was asked by the auditors, and I've got sufficient evidence to prove that.
There is no single county that has come before us that has agreed with the Auditor General 100%. Let us not be like the student who, when the teacher gives him a grade E in the report form, then he says, Mwalimu alinionea.
Sonko is accusing some officers in the Auditor General's office of trying to blackmail the county into writing them a favorable report.
This is a deal gone sour between the auditors and some of the officers we inherited from the previous administration who believe corruption cannot be fought in Nairobi City County.
The matter raised by the governor, especially touching on corruption, is a very sensitive issue that we cannot dismiss, because in one way or the other, it might be affecting the reports that is tabled before us.
If there are allegations touching on the conduct of the Auditor General, I refer you to section 60, 61, and 62 of the Public Audit Act.
He further accuses the said officers of including a company, GMCM Construction Limited, that is said to have rehabilitated Ndwaru Road in Dagoretti South and paid 98 million shillings, yet it is one of the stalled projects.
It's in compliance with the section standing under 99. I have interests in a company that is mentioned in this report on page 18.
The committee said it will call the governor at a later date to shed more light on the beautification, saying his responses, despite providing statements of bank accounts, were not satisfactory. Kennedy Muredhi, NTV.
Well, as the Nairobi governor was defending his expenditure, more questions are being raised about the county's huge and unpaid debt to the Kenya Medical Supplies Agency, that's KEMSA.
In what is now a beta prescription for the county, KEMSA cut off the supply of drugs to Nairobi, Murang'a and Narok until the debt is paid. Eunice Omolo reports on what this means to residents of the three counties who rely on low-cost state hospitals for medicine.
The Kenya Medical Supply Authority administered a painful dose to Nairobi, Murang'a and Narok counties who have failed to settle their outstanding debts with the agencies. KEMSA will now cut off the supply of drugs to these three counties of an unpaid total debt of 410 million shillings.
When you come to the county that has the highest amount of debt, which is over 90 days, is Nairobi County with 284 million. And another county that has defaulted over 90 days is Narok County with 104 million. We have other counties that we have in discussion and they have committed to pay.
The three have been denied fresh supplies for the last 3 months. KEMSA says they breached the repayment agreements reached with them and that demanded a partial clearance of the bills as a condition to reopen supplies. This is now a sour description for the low-cost state-owned health centers and more pain for the residents who rely on them. The drugs agency says Kwale, Kericho, Kilifi and Makueni counties have also not ordered fresh drugs from KEMSA in the 3 months. The 4 counties have a combined debt of 113 million Kenya shillings.
And a county like Uasin Gishu, they don't have any debt that is over 30 days, meaning they have a current order of around 54 million. And we have a credit period of 45 days. But some of the counties have continued to operate over that credit period.
KEMSA has raised concerns over the accumulated debts that it says affect its operations. At the same time, Health CLC Silikarioki is pushing for continued quality standard drugs to ensure quality healthcare provisions for Kenya. The medical agency has sought help from Senate to recover a total of 2.3 billion Kenya shillings debts from various counties after efforts to recover the debt through the intervention of Council of Governors, the Treasury and the Control of Budget bore no fruit. Eunice Omolo, NTV.
To a sad note, 3 people were killed in a road accident along Kiambu Road when a 14-seater matatu plunged into a valley in Karura Forest near the DCI headquarters.
A baby died at the scene of the crash and 2 women passed on while receiving treatment in a hospital. Officials say that 9 are hospitalized at the Guru Nanak and Kenyatta hospitals.
The matatu belonging to Marafiki Sacco was reduced to mangled shell with the roof ripped off as it crashed through trees.
It is reported that the driver of the Kiambu-bound 14-seater matatu was overlapping when he veered off the road. The vehicle rolled several times before plunging into a ditch.
The crash comes after the National Transport and Safety Authority and the Kenya Bureau of Standards were put on the spot for failing to implement standards meant to enhance the safety of passengers and other road users.
Right, from corruption and that tragic story, we need to take a breather on NTV Tonight. Do stay with us. More coming up in just a moment.
Welcome back to NTV tonight. In Nairobi, it's currently raining, actually.
It is.
And several other parts of the country. But heavy flash floods have caused a cascade of despair in Partimaro village in Kajiado County as flood waters swept away bridges and vehicles.
Well, this vehicle was swept downstream by the raging waters, but the driver managed to swim against the tide. The floods have also washed away bridges on parts of rivers, cutting off residents from Ilbisil and Kajiado town.
Kajiado Central Deputy County Commissioner Charles Wambugu has cautioned residents against crossing swollen flood waters. Last year, 7 people were killed by floods in different parts of Kajiado County, including Kiserian and Ongata-Rongai towns.
Hakuna usaidizi. Hatuwezi fukisha hii barabara. Hatuna mali yoyote ya kufuka. Haijawekwa daraja mali yoyote. Hii mtu mpaka mwisho haina daraja.
From that, let's switch focus now to the blood-curdling tales of murder that have gripped Western Kenya and indeed the country. Several families from Matungu constituency in Kakamega County are mourning their loved ones murdered in cold blood in separate incidents.
The recent murder of a Form 2 student who was hacked to death outside his mother's house now adds to the chain of incidents that have unsettled residents there. Zacchaeus Mosame reports from Kakamega.
These dejected faces explicitly describe the mood in Bulimbo village, Matungu constituency. Family and friends are mourning the sudden and brutal death of 19-year-old Sharif Odongo. Odongo, a Form 2 student at Makunda Muslim Secondary School, was murdered 2 days ago by a gang armed with machetes.
Na hakika Matungu hatuna security kwa sababu hapo mahali walilaliza huyo mtoto Sharifu, tena mwezi iliyopita tena walikata kijana mwingine hapo chini, mtoto wa Protasi.
Vile niliondoka kwa nyumba, nilitembea kufika hapa kwa hii fence ya kwanza hii, kupika macho yangu huko nikaona mtoto amelala. Na nilisituka, nikafika karibu, nikapata mtoto amekufa. Hakukuwa anapumua wala nini, ameshakauka kabisa, vile alilala ndio vile alibaki.
This is just one in a string of incidents that have residents on edge. Just last week, 3 badly mutilated bodies were found in the markets of Lunganyiro and Matungu. Another body of a student at St. Teresa's Itete was found dumped in a ditch. She had been stabbed and left to bleed out.
Punde, juzi, tumekuwa na kisa ambacho wameua mtu pale Matungu, Campside, ambaye alikuwa ni bawabu. Shule ya Itete wameua msichana mmoja wakatupa karibu na gate ya shule. Pia waliua baba mwingine juzi kule chini, ukielekea sehemu ya Muira. Na sasa hivi tunaongea kisa ambacho wameua kijana ambaye hana hatia yote, kijana ambaye ako shule.
Tuko na mayumba 10. Kasi ya mayumba 10 ni kulinda wananchi. Siwezi nikachua kama wako. Inaonekana pia hiyo ofisi imelala au imechukua watu wasembe. Sasa mimi naomba serikali kupitia kwa assistant chief, kwa chiefs na DOs wakiendelea wakuje katika area hii, tuwe na mkutano mkubwa sana.
6 people have since lost their lives in a span of 3 weeks within Matungu constituency, something that has raised serious concerns about the insecurity troubling the region. Authorities have assured residents that they will get to the bottom of these attacks. Zacchaeus Masame, NTV, Matungu, Kakamega.
To more tragic news, the mutilated body of a middle-aged woman was found in a sack in Umoja Estate.
Now elsewhere in Bosongo location, Kisii County, police have arrested a man who strangled his wife to death and unsuccessfully tried to drown himself in River Kuja in Kigati area.
Nuru Abdulaziz reports.
The pain of losing a loved one, relatives, friends and neighbors gathered for a closer glimpse of what has transpired. 24-year-old Dori Kanyabuto was allegedly strangled by her 27-year-old husband, Geoffrey Manyaka.
Nimetoka kanisani, nikapata sister yake ananipigia simu. Nikuja nione kama kwa nyumba. Kukuja nikapata mlango iko wazi. Ndio nikampigia nikamwambia mlango iko wazi, akaniambia hebu angalia kama bibi yako tumempigia simu achukui. Kuingia nikaona kama mtu amelala, nikaogopa. Ile kushtuka umeona mtu amelala unajua kama alikufa kwa vile umeambiwa bwana yake hayuko. Nikatoka nje nikapigia sub chief akakuja na watu wengine wakakuja kwenda kwa nyumba tukapata shakufa.
It is alleged that the man tried to commit suicide after strangling his wife.
Mimi si kuchua, tulikuja tu, tulipika kwa njia haraba, wakasema tulika amekufa.
Geoffrey Manyaka and his deceased wife, Dorika Nyabuto, have been cohabiting for 4 years.
Mimi najua wanaishi vizuri lakini sasa sijui imetokea namna gani.
Sijaona kama wamegombana, wameishi tu kwa amani, hata bibi jana alikuwa kanisani.
Hatuwahi sikia hata wakipigana, hata hiyo jana usiku tu hatukusikia chochote.
The body of the deceased was taken to the Kisii Teaching and Referral Hospital mortuary for preservation, awaiting a post-mortem examination. Elsewhere, police are investigating the murder of a middle-aged woman whose badly mutilated body was found stacked in a sack in Umoja Estate. Residents decry increased insecurity in the area.
Security imekuwa mbaya sana sana mvua ikinyesha. Nyakati za mvua, huyu si mtu wa kwanza. Kuna nyakati hata mtoto aliokotwa hapa kama amekufa.
Hata kama mtasikia mahali mtu amepotea, mtawaeleza wananchi wakuje Buruburu for identification purpose. Sasa na anybody with any information unaweza kufrontia kwetu.
Her body was taken to City Mortuary. Nur Abdulaziz, NTV.
And in other news from the courts, suspects involved in the murder of Rongo University student Sharon Otieno now want Judge Jessila Sit to rescue herself from the trial, claiming they will not be granted a fair hearing. Governor Okoth Obada's former personal assistant Michael Oyamo and his former aide Caspal Oberio accused the judge of making prejudicial remarks while declining to release them on bail, which they claim negated the presumption of innocence guaranteed by the Constitution.
And elsewhere, the court allowed the DCI to hold 3 suspects for 4 more days as they investigate their involvement in drug dealing. The 3 suspects, Simon Kariuki Wangeshi, Hussein Nganga Abdallah and Gabriel Mwangi, are accused of supplying drugs within the Kasarani sub-county area and its environs. They were arrested on the 26th of April and found in possession of what police said were narcotics.
Without him. It is my humble prayer that the accused to be put into bail.
From the courts, we take a short break. We'll be back with more stories. Stay with us.
You're just in time for your daily look at the world of business. Welcome, I am Julian Amboko, and we kick off with matters trade. Kenyan and Tanzanian finance ministers are meeting in Arusha, Tanzania this week to discuss ways of fast-tracking harmonization of domestic taxes, fees and levies which impede the free flow of goods and services between the two countries. The meeting is part of ongoing efforts to resolve the long-standing trade spat between Dar es Salaam and Nairobi. Victor Kiprop with more on that story.
More than a year after Presidents Uhuru Kenyatta of Kenya and Pombe Magufuli of Tanzania directed their ministers to resolve the issues they described as small and vexing, officials from the two countries are still chasing truce. The latest bilateral meeting in Arusha, Tanzania agreed on, among other things, the need for immigration and finance officials from the two countries to meet and address challenges relating to levies and immigration. A total of 19 non-tariff barriers, including issues of multiple inspection of goods, out of the 32 outstanding non-tariff barriers were resolved at the end of the meeting.
Immigration chiefs should meet immediately, but not later than June this year. And that will be led by the PS Immigration for Kenya. We also agreed that all levies and fees should be harmonized. In other words, domestic taxes such as fees and levies should be harmonized to facilitate trade. And this is an agenda for the ministers of finance who are meeting this week.
Resolution of 6 other NTVs, including the 10,000 shillings temporary assignment levy and the preferential treatment denied to confectionaries from Kenya, are at an advanced stage, pending verification and follow-ups. However, critics argue that some of the issues are only solved on paper and not in practice.
We have agreed on a monitoring framework to ensure that the issues agreed are fully implemented, and that any not implementing will be, we will find a way to take action against those institutions.
Last year, Kenya's exports to Tanzania grew by 1.3 billion shillings to 29.8 billion shillings, even as imports from Dar es Salaam increased by about 600 million shillings to 17.8 billion shillings. Victor Kiprop, NTV Business.
And staying with the signing of deals, Safaricom and Equity Bank have revived their partnership for the failed joint venture that was launched 9 years ago, M-Kesho, which currently has a paltry 20,000 customers. Chief executives of the two top brands in the country on Monday morning signed a memorandum of understanding to that effect as they seek to deepen financial inclusion in the country. Alex Mwangi reports.
After flexing their muscles against each other for some years, Safaricom and Equity Bank, arguably the two most well-known brands in the country, have opted to bury the hatchet and chart a new path forward.
I think that time we were young and not very experienced. We are now more experienced and hopefully wiser.
What we're trying to do here now is we're just trying to do what the customer wants. And the customers have been saying, why? I'm already a customer of Safaricom. I'm already a customer of Equity. Why do I have to make a choice?
The partnership between Safaricom and Equity Bank is anchored on M-Kesho, the platform which the two financial behemoths launched exactly 9 years ago, but which did not gain traction.
It's the second most innovative thing that we've done for the Kenyan financial sector. We've always had a common view of what the problem was. We just kind of looked at it through different lenses. And there has been an alignment over the years on what that lens should be for addressing the problem of the ordinary Kenyan.
He has 31 million customers. I have 14 million customers. All of them are members of Bob's 31 million. Equity is a subset of Safaricom customer base. So M-Kesho might not be the flagship, but for the time being, that is what we have, and that is what we can show.
I sought to find out whether the two firms will need any regulatory approval to proceed with the renewed partnership.
So far, I don't see huge requirement for a regulation perspective, from a banking perspective. But as we move on, we will see whether there are opportunities for regulatory approvals.
The partnership between Safaricom and Equity Bank is open to other facets where the two can produce synergies, including cybersecurity and collaboration at a regional level. M-Kesho allows users to send money from their M-Pesa accounts into their bank accounts. Alex Mwangi, NTV.
And it is the end of the month and therefore time to get paid. For many Kenyans, payday is a difficult time because more often than not, the pay does not match the cost of living. How do these Kenyans survive as the clock ticks towards another Labor Day? Lillian Carey reports on the impact that the rising cost of living has had on households, especially those living on the minimum wage.
Every weekend, Edna Mudhama makes a trip to Juja Market to shop for her family. A trip that she previously enjoyed is now strenuous following the rising cost of commodities. The mother of three says that she has been financially vulnerable as her cost of living and expenses grows at a faster pace than her current income. But even as the economic survey released last week by the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics pronounced a 6.3% expansion in GDP across 2018, traders at this market feel that the impact of that growth is absent on the ground as food commodities rise in cost daily, becoming too expensive for most Kenyans.
Tumeruhusu customer wengi sana kwa sababu mtu mwenye ameajiriwa pesa kidogo hawezi afford kununua cabbage 90 bob. Unaona majani kama hii, watu wanakuja wanakota ile safi. Mtu anaenda kukatakatia watoto. Juu akikuja asikie cabbage ni 100 hata afford kununua.
In order to survive on her income, Edna is adopting cost-cutting measures such as kitchen gardening to minimize her expenses.
I don't buy mboga kwa soko. Nikikuja nichune zangu nimetosheka.
According to the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, the inflation rate scaled to 4.35% in March from 4.14% in the previous month, buoyed by escalated food prices. And this is affecting the day-to-day lives of many Kenyans.
In terms of mshahara, income remains the same, lakini in terms of food stuffs, prices inaenda ziki-hike every other day. Now, like this pineapple, I would buy it at 40 bob. Sahi ni 70-80 bob. Kids have to eat. Siwezi waambia no, hatuwezi kula fruits because life imeenda juu. A lot of leisure you have to shelf. Ile pesa kidogo ningebakisha ya kupeleka watoto out every other weekend. Now you keep it to one weekend, maybe in a month. Hivo.
A few years ago, 1,000 shillings would have majorly contributed to the food basket of many Kenyans. But this has not been the case recently. From our visit to the market today, these were the only items we were able to buy for 1,000 shillings. Food which Edna tells us will not last in her household for more than 2 days. Working Kenyans often look forward to Labor Day because the announcements made on that day have an impact on their living situation. This year, wage increase or not, workers are hoping for a decent living wage to enable them meet their expenses. Lillian Carey, NTV.
Now, that story by Lillian Carey reminds us of the distinction between real and nominal wages, where, of course, real wages are adjusted for inflation, and many Kenyans are having a challenge with this. Elsewhere, Jambo Pay has marked its 10th anniversary today by waiving parking fees in 30 towns across the country, including the capital city of Nairobi. The day-long campaign targeted motorists in Meru, Embu, Runyenjes, Kitale, Manyata, and Endebess, among others. The online payment provider is also seeking to mark its anniversary through a tree planting exercise in collaboration with the Kenya Forest Service at the Ngong Forest. Jambo Pay currently provides digital payment services to over 5,000 organizations in Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda, Ghana, and Somalia.
We've had a very good relationship with the motorists who form a significant component of our clients. And Jambo Pay is turning 10 years, and there was no better way of rewarding and saying thank you to our customers than give them free parking for those who are in areas that we provide the revenue collection services.
And that's it for the Business Bulletin tonight.
Pope Francis welcomed hairdressers, hairstylists, and beauticians to the Vatican, but warned them not to indulge in gossip while feathering locks or painting fingernails.
He urged them to practice their profession in a Christian style, treating customers with kindness and courtesy, and always offering them a good word and encouragement. He also says they should avoid giving into temptation of chatter that easily creeps into a work environment as they snip, split ends and wax limbs.
Now, the Argentine pontiff opened a barbershop and washrooms for the homeless in St. Peter's Square in 2015. I bet you love a little bit of gossip at the barbers.
What was that snip? How does the Pope know these things?
Well, he's informed. No doubt the Pope goes to the salon as well. Or maybe the salon,
for manicure and pedicure.
The salon goes to him, perhaps.
So in this week's episode of My Job, Milton Jumbo, a career cook, has for the last 5 years mastered the skill of cooking, and his habit of singing has earned him the name the singing chef from his colleagues.
NTV's Fatuma Bugu samples the sumptuous meals prepared by Milton as he narrates how he nurtured his culinary skills.
Ever wondered what it's like to make a living in a kitchen? 26-year-old Milton Jumbo chose a career as a cook, a decision that crystallized in his younger days. A fourth child in a family of 9, Milton grew up with his grandmother. He spent most of his time with her. Although he would have it a different way, he was unable to continue with his education.
Tulitamani tusome, tupate kazi mzuri, ikashindikana. Sasa ikabidi tu sasa the best way tusibie watu ili nini ndio sasa ikabidi tu nifanye kazi ya hoteli.
Milton started cooking at the age of 5, the beginning of what has been a long period of sampling food delicacies and which developed in a fascinating obsession. Through experimenting and also by incorporating a variety of food preparation techniques and picking some tips from cookbooks, Milton grew in his passion, his first teacher being his grandmother.
Nilikuwa ninakaa kwa shosho yangu, hasa ndio alinifunza jinsi ya kupika, ya kulenye ninajua kupika ni pilau, chapati, ndengu, minji, mandazi na kutengeneza.
You may be surprised to learn what a typical day for a chef is actually like. He normally gets to his workstation, which is a cafe in Nairobi's Kimathi Lane, by 5 a.m. every morning from Kiambu County.
By saa 10 niko hapa, nikuje nianze kazi zangu, nipike mandazi, samosa, sausage.
His ability to mix ingredients and bring them together in a new and beautiful way is exciting. Singing is Milton's way of charging himself up as he cooks, and he does so effortlessly. Having the potential to deliver such unique satisfaction to others through food provides him a level of personal gratification incomparable to any other pursuit. Working as a chef is no easy job, Milton says, but he strives to ensure he has time for his wife and child, even as his small family grows. His vision is to one day start up his own cafe or hotel. He encourages the youth not to disregard small beginnings.
Wakipata tu ile yenye inaweza wasaidia kwa maisha, wasiache, waifanye tu, wasiweke matarajio ya watu kwa ofisi mara wapi. Ile tu yenye watapata, hata kama ni mjengo, ama hii yangu ya kupika, wawe wavumilivu.
Milton has made lemonade out of the lemon that life has dealt him. He embodies determination and belief that nothing is impossible. Fatima Bugu, NTV, for my job.
Nothing is impossible indeed. Just put your mind to it. All right, on that note, time for the sports news. Watson Karuma is standing by, excited to be in studio, grabbing a selfie. He's coming up in just a moment.
Thank you for still keeping us company. Welcome to NTV Sport. I'm Watson Karuma. Now, Gor Mahia stretched their lead at the summit of the Kenyan Premier League log after edging Ulinzi Stars 2-1 at the Afraha Stadium in Nakuru. Erisa Seki Sambu headed in Francis Mustafa's cross early in the first minute of the game. The game would then settle into the second half before Ulinzi equalized on the 76th minute. Samuel Onyango restored Gor's lead in the 86th minute. The victory stretches Gor's lead to 58 points, 9 clear of second place Sofapaka. Now, he has been described as the man who's forgotten how to lose. Eliud Kipchoge cemented his status as the greatest marathon runner of all time by clocking the second fastest time in history on his way to winning the London Marathon for a historic 4th time. Tonight, we look at the world record holder's journey to superstardom.
He has never run a bad marathon. He's won his last 10. He's the world record holder and the reigning Olympic champion. Lineup, Eliud Kipchoge. Surely, arguably, the greatest male marathon runner in history. Kip sang.
Every time he lines up for a race, Eliud Kipchoge just seems to get greater. Former world record holder and 2013 Berlin Marathon champion Wilson Kipsang was the only man to ever beat Eliud Kipchoge when he broke the world record in 2013. It will be the first and last time Kipchoge finished second in a marathon. World record holder Kipchoge cruised to another convincing victory at the London Marathon. The Olympic marathon champion controlled the pace and looked comfortable throughout, and with 5 athletes tight on his heels, they were down.
What a guy, personally. Now, the decision on Caster Semenya's challenge to continue competing without any restrictions will be announced by the Court of Arbitration for Sport on Wednesday. The double Olympic 800 meters champion is challenging the sports governing body IAAF over its decision to restrict testing. On to the NBA playoffs, and the Golden State Warriors outlasted the Houston Rockets 104-100 in Game 1 of the Western Conference semifinals in Oakland, California. Kevin Durant scored a team high of 35 points, and Stephen Curry buried a three-pointer with 25 seconds remaining. Four-time London Marathon champion Eliud Kipchoge's historic feat. It was easy for fellow Kenyan Bridget Kosgei's achievement, winning the women's elite race, to get lost in the adulation. The 25-year-old currently leads the World Marathon Majors Women's Series with 50 points. Her victory in the English capital is our moment of the weekend. To you. Have a lovely night, and it's back to you, Smriti and Dennis.
Well, thank you, Watson. And before we leave, Press is coming up next. And, you know, President Kenyatta and Raila Odinga's trip to China dominated headlines this past week. But did the press stick to the facts in their reports?
Well, on Press Pass tonight, we ask just that question. Join Olive Burrows, who's stepping in for Mark Masai, as she engages State House and the media on the SGR debate.
Well, that's all we had for you. My name is Dennis Okari.
Thanks for joining us. David Agondoa has been our sign language interpreter tonight. We'll see you again on Wednesday night. Bye-bye.